I had planned to do this for a while, and now that we've gotten back to the point where the show has been out for over a year, the fandom has moved on, the anime awards are over, and there's no follow-up animation in sight, it was time for me to finally come out and say it. I didn't watch Yuri on Ice before making my first video about it. I am a terrible person who said terrible things only to be guilt-tripped into watching it twice later and analyzing it until it kind of made up for that. The funny thing is, everything I said in the first video still turned out to be true, based solely off of researching and not first-hand experience, so I'm not going to say I'm sorry for saying what I said because nothing I found out later contradicts any of it, and I stand by what I said. However, I will apologize if it feels like the people who took the time to watch that first video feel betrayed at all. I mean, I'm sorry if you feel that way, my people. Unfortunately, while about a year ago I planned to end this video there, I can't just make this an apology video and move on. To my chagrin, Yuri on Ice still bothers me for a lot of reasons. It keeps on showing up in my Pinterest feed and I can't blacklist this stupid stuff. People bring it up and I get triggered. I ranted and analyzed so much out of it last year, but I still didn't get everything off my chest that I wish I could have. I'm not over it, even though I tried, and so, bearing in mind that everybody is probably going to ignore this video, because who needs to listen to me bringing up something that might as well be dead, and they have every right to do so, I decided to dredge up my guns and get triggered in another special analytical feature that I intentionally left out of my analysis before, because I was trying very, very hard to be nice about it at that point. People of Earth and elsewhere, the channel of Spam presents to you a cracker's take on what is the singular worst aspect of the entire glitter-coated garbage heap of wasted potential that was Yuri on Ice. A fair warning now, I am done being sensitive about this subject matter. Someone needs to talk about it at length, and I could very well trigger some people. I might hurt your feelings or offend you. If you don't believe that that will be the case, go ahead and keep listening, but don't say I didn't warn you that this is going to cover some touchy subjects. Straight up, the worst part about this show is the main character. And not the one that the title tries to fool you into thinking shares the spotlight. No, the whiny piece of trash called Yuri is the bottom of the barrel for this show, to the point where the series will be better off even if it was written from Victor's point of view, and Victor is pending second worst character for reasons I won't go into, because this video was supposed to have a laser focus on the one worst part, which is, without a doubt, Yuri. Oh geez, now where do I start? So, I said a lot of the problems with the series come from the fact that it is too ambitious for the subjects and number of episodes it is given. This character is one of the criminally affected by the poor planning and writing of the show in general. I said it before and I'll say it again. More than anyone else in the show, Yuri works off of the things the audience has to assume about his character rather than things people who made the show can actually be bothered to show us. Furthermore, the things that they do take the time to show us add so little to this. It's not as though he's a person so much as one of those blank slate characters the audience is supposed to impose themselves on top of instead of being his own person. Yes, Yuri is a boring harem protagonist. No, he's worse. He's a reverse harem protagonist. He's freaking Bella Swan. That's how poorly put together he is. Let's take a look, shall we? Here's the gist of what I said in my analysis when I was straining to be nice. He is nothing without Victor, Victor is nothing without him. As an individual character, Yuri is absolutely nothing on his own. Because if he did, based off of what everyone likes to act like it's implied, once again, no one can be bothered to actually show us this. Why does Yuri skate? Hell if I know. From what this show has to say about it, Whiny McCry started taking skating seriously because he was inspired by Victor, and the entire time he's been skating, he's gotten nothing out of it for himself. According to the other characters, he used to go skating when he was stressed out, but Yuri himself can't even mention that the activity that is skating holds anything for him, or that he even enjoys it. Not until about halfway through the series, and by then it's back to Victor again. If the show is so different for starting in the middle of Yuri's skating career instead of at the beginning, then why does it feel like that doesn't even matter? He could have been skating for 2 years or 20 years and this story would still be the same. This is not a sports anime. A sports anime tells you why the most important characters are doing what they do, and Yuri has none of that. There is literally nothing telling us the story of how he got to the point that he's at, and at this point he is just a mess of complaints and self-depreciating dialogue. Anyone, literally anyone could be here telling us how this came about. But nope, it doesn't make a lick of difference. Why is he skating? Hell if I know! Skating doesn't matter here. It's just something these guys do. So, let's address something that really peeves me. That would be the excuses. What I mean is the excuses for all this bullshit behavior brought about by the poor writing and foisted off onto the character and used, mostly by the fans, to dissolve almost every argument brought about when criticizing this horrible mess. He has anxiety. What kind of anxiety? To what degree? It depends on who you ask. It can't be performance anxiety because, guess what, any athlete or performer worth their salt gets butterflies before an event, and performance anxiety, to the degree that is implied here, pretty much prevents a person from ever even trying to break the threshold that holds them back from displaying their talents, or lack thereof in some cases. If Yuri is so anxious or has a fear of performance, or even had one, then we should have been shown how he overcame that, and got so pretentious to the point where he throws away being the 6th best skater in the entire world just because he lost. Wait, he wasn't upset because he lost, he was upset because he didn't do his best on the world stage. Objection! He just wanted to impress Victor. This jackass gives no rat's rear end about the world stage. If he did, losing would still be understandably frustrating. Any other sports anime can have someone cry after a loss and make it legitimately heartfelt. But no one has to feel anything here. Does that sound insensitive? Well, so is Yuri. Let's cite this very deep and moving piece of the show where, in episode 4, he's finally opening up to Victor about his problems with skating and his so-called emotional imbalance or whatever. Bear in mind that Victor is the one who had to suggest this after months of training with Yuri, despite being overjoyed at having his idol around to coach him, and has done nothing to try to get to know him better. These two haven't had any kind of real talk this entire time. This is only happening because Victor, for a fact, knows that Yuri has problems because he asked the friends and family around him, who Yuri also can't be bothered to be grateful for having them around. But we'll talk more about that later. So, blah blah blah, we know he cries a lot, except not in this particular case for some reason. And that's what I find funny, how people expect me to believe that after all the supposed time that Yuri has been holding back his insecurities and anxiety, and that after all this he's perfectly calm talking about it. Newsflash, that's not how this works. Take it from a person who knows firsthand. If this guy has been so isolated and unable to ever talk about these feelings to anyone, and then suddenly someone who meets him halfway and he can be open with, even just a little bit, even just slowly but surely, this is the scene where he should be crying. This is the time. This would be appropriate. Talking about feelings is when you break down. This isn't just a conversation about, I get nervous and I'm not confident. The entire world knows that. This is a breakthrough moment, and this makes it look so casual my eyes bleed. Then what's this about Victor being the first to meet him halfway anyway? How about that girl from Detroit who clearly liked him and wanted to get to know him better? The one who hugged him because he was upset that his unnamed friend, who was probably peachy, let's face it, because how many friends does he really have or pride himself in having, when he got injured? Oh, he pushed her away because all of her attention annoyed him and made him feel weak, you know, kind of reading your body language and seeing him for what he was? Oh, but then Victor comes in and borderline sexually harasses him into bringing the truth out, and that's fine. Oh, sure, maybe not her, but what about literally everyone else? His mom and dad and sister, I mean, she has his sister, right? Screw them, they don't know how skating is. Probably that's the reason. How about his friends overseas and coaches and colleagues that he's worked with? Seriously, why is Victor so special? And then people expect me to believe this isn't a yaoi. It's definitely written like one. They don't even bother to actually tell us why Victor is any different from literally anyone else around this character. And on that note, let's talk about how this guy, whiny boy over in the bathroom crying, can't be any less ungrateful if he tried. Never thought of it as love before. Looking in retrospect, I guess I had a lot of people supporting me, and I was lucky to have that, but I never really thought of that as a show of love on the part of anybody associated with me. What? Even in his final skating scene, he can't be bothered to think of all the people who unconditionally helped and supported him. Victor. Only Victor. Just Victor. Oh, and look, Yuri Plisetsky, what's he doing here? He doesn't matter. What is this misconstrued look at love, anyway? 2 episodes in, it looked like there was more than one meaning to love, and that is something that you don't see enough in any kind of media nowadays. But we throw that out the window as soon as Yuri Plisetsky becomes an irrelevant side story. Don't let the show try and fool you into thinking that any of these other characters and their relationships supposedly would be displaying different forms of love. They were handled so sloppily that it would be more serviceable to them to just write them out of the story entirely and stop pretending. Anxiety, my left kidney. There is not enough to this character to build on here to define what that means. People don't relate to Yuri Katsuki because he's made relatable or because of his experiences. They relate to having the feelings they see in these situations of weakness. Crying in the bathroom, losing a pet, self-destructing, or not talking to other people because you're shy. Am I saying there's a problem with that? Not necessarily. I mean, people find relatability and representation everywhere where it's not. If there are people who can look at this guy and say, if he can get through his hard times, then I can too, then good on you. I'm simply saying that there are way too many people who take it more seriously than it is. Yuri on Ice is not an emotionally gripping story about overcoming depression and anxiety. In truth, Yuri on Ice doesn't know what it wants to be. I don't know what it's supposed to be. It's a boil of anime that's written like a yaoi, without any of the substance that makes it technically a yaoi, which is porn, by the way. It had potential to be so many things more than that. Does it have the building blocks for being an amazing sports anime? Yes, but it is in fact not that. There is no focus on the character's reasons for being in this sport more than any other situation. Skating is no more a part of the story than it is simply a setting. Did it have a main character who was set up to be deep and relatable? With a whole story about overcoming his anxiety and insecurities for the sake of something? Sure, but it sure as heck is not that either. The show doesn't bother giving us the foundation for why he does anything if it just makes him upset, and his dreams are implied to us rather than stated at best, and at worst it is, Victor is my all. He is not a representation of people with anxiety or depression, let alone both. He is a fantasy story where elements of these disorders are pilfered and cherry-picked and used to gain sympathy for him and make people cheer for him. And quite frankly, I can't agree with that. This is the biggest problem with Yuri on Ice. A problem that could have been fixed so easily if the people in charge of the show had just thought it through. Or if the fans stopped blowing this character out of proportion and acting like it's revolutionary. Come on, guys. If this show had any kind of commitment to any part of it, Yuri still wouldn't have one foot in the closet after proposing to Victor, especially since it's been confirmed that they live in some perfect alternate universe where people don't discriminate against each other for who or how they love. Yuri on Ice doesn't know what it wants to be, and it has suffered greatly for it. My head hurts. Probably from the high sodium intake. I'm done now, I swear. I could talk about how to make Yuri on Ice a better show, or how to fix the Japanese Yuri based off of all the analyses I've made, because they go much deeper than what I've talked about in the past, but I doubt anyone is actually interested in that at this point. Still no news of Season 2, or that movie that was supposed to come out at some point. And while I have my finger on that subject, the show can't realistically have a second season at all based off of the very last skate in the series. But hey, you never know. With how bad this show messes up, they might just make it worse. If that happens, I'll try to keep my mouth shut, but don't count on it. Feel free to argue and assent or dissent in the comments. I can go on forever, and will fight you if you are going to look for one. But I will be blunt and as unapologetic as I am here. You have been warned. As usual, the picture being drawn here can be found linked in the description, as well as my Twitter, where I talk nerdy and give updates on my channel and such. Suggestions for art and videos welcome, and as always, I thank anybody who watched this video all the way through to the end. I hope to see you in the next one. Ciao!